Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Tea with Louise. And I have a returning guest today, my friend Desiree Antila, whose book, Sun Signs in Love, was published. I've got two, was published on Eclipse Day, November the 8th. What a day to publish. We've got a little story to tell about that. What we've learned is that publishers should actually listen to the astrologers that they're publishing, but that's fine. They didn't. It's all good and all going to be good in the end.
Yeah.
But we're going to kind of talk a little bit more about Desiree's book and a little bit about writing and publishing and so on and so forth. So this book, Desiree, is just lovely. And by the way, my words are on the front cover because I did a little testimonial for the book and I just love the book. I want to say before we dive into the conversation that because I actually have 3 copies of the book now, I'm going to give 2 of them away. But I'm only going to give them away to people that become members of my Venus enchantment community. So I'm going to do a drawing, but there'll be one for the USA and one for anywhere in the world because shipping is so expensive now. I can only ship one outside of the USA. So if you're interested in winning one of the books in the drawing, go to my website, louiseeddington.com, and join my Venus enchantment community. Now, I'm having a membership drive for the community anyway, and people who become members before the end of the year and remain members through next summer will also get my next Venus retrograde class, which will run from early July through September, free. So there's 2 incentives to become a member of my community now. Enter the drawing for the book and remain a member and get the Venus retrograde class free. It'll be my 5th time running the Venus retrograde class. And honestly, it's the most amazing class ever. But anyway, enough about me. Welcome, Desiree. So you're officially a published author now. What does it feel like?
It definitely feels like I've joined a club. Stephen Forrest actually emailed me, and he literally said that to me, and I about fell out of my chair. He goes, "Welcome to the club," and I said, "Thank you." So, yeah, it's still a little surreal, but it's so fun. The whole process is definitely a lot of fun, and releasing it was. I did feel like I was in a vortex, like because I was with the eclipse vortex, but yeah, it's been wonderful. And I was just gonna bounce off that you were talking about, your Venus retrograde class, and I believe it will be in Leo this upcoming year, which
Yes.
is gonna be interesting. My husband and we reconnected during a Venus retrograde, so don't fear it, right? But we've known each other for a long time and we reconnected, and that's one of the things that can happen during a Venus retrograde is you can connect with past flames, so not always a bad thing.
No, it's definitely not. I actually love Venus retrogrades, which is why I do the class, because I think, they're a huge time of growth in love, in relationships, and in self-love, and all good things Venusian. So I'm quite excited about the next Venus retrograde, because the middle of the retrograde, when Venus meets the sun at the Venus star point, is
Yeah,
exactly conjunct my Uranus.
that's very interesting.
I know.
I'm gonna have to check in with you to see what's going on with you at that time.
No, and it's in my 8th house.
Oh,
Mm.
very
maybe,
cool.
maybe we'll renew our vows because I've been married 25 years, so I don't think.
So romantic, or maybe, yeah, like a surprise trip or like something surprising or last minute. That's fun though. That's exciting. Very cool.
I'm very excited about that. But anyway, back to your book. So let's before we dive into the whole book, tell them why launching on an eclipse day that's square Saturn is perhaps not the best idea.
Right. So, eclipses act as like coin tosses. I feel like it can go kind of one way or the other way. And which is why many astrologers always kind of say, hey, we don't really recommend necessarily uh, manifesting on that day because it might not go the way you plan. It's just really obscure energy. And so when my publisher was like, months and months ago said, all right, this is the date. We're going to do November 8th. And I'm like, oh, okay. So as an astrologer, the first thing I do is I go look up the date. And of course, the first thing I noticed was the eclipse. And then the second thing I noticed was Saturn square in Aquarius, which formed a T-square because the North Node is currently in Taurus along with Uranus. And so it made this T-square, and then Saturn was at the apex of the T-square. So Saturn represents longevity. And so I was like, oh no, my book isn't going to have any longevity. So I said to my publisher, I said, can I get a different date? And she goes, nope. So I'm like, all right, well, this is the energy I have to work with. And, we're just going to make the best of it. But then on my launch date, Amazon was completely sold out of my books. People went to buy and they couldn't, and I'm like, oh.
But I kind of, being a Sagittarius and always very optimistic, I kind of see that was the Saturn was separating and moving away from the South Node and all that Scorpio energy. And Saturn is also mastery and lasting things over time. So maybe you'll get that, maybe it'll be a slow build.
I like that optimism. And I have Sagittarius rising, which is my Sag sister. And I'm a very optimistic. Jupiter's my chart ruler. So I always keep it positive. So I'm gonna take that from you. And I'm just gonna hold on.
Yeah.
I hope that's
because I've looked, and despite the initial, because the first publication day is always the big day for any book, but I've looked where it is in the rankings, and it's not doing too badly, so I wouldn't worry about it. So just keep doing your podcasts. And my first book was a slow build. It went nowhere on the first day, and then it got well up there. It's faded away.
Like top 10 forever.
Oh, that's the second one that's just stayed up there. But my first one did get up there. It just took a little longer. The second one kind of went straight up there. So you can't tell with books, really. So
what was the chart for your second book, which has had amazing success? What was the chart like for that when it was published, if you don't mind me asking?
I can't remember.
You don't remember? I would be curious to see, because I'm like, that's what I need. I need some of that.
I'm a terrible astrologer. If I don't get to pick the date, I don't really look. I'm like, well, it's got to be perfect because I have no choice, because publishers always pick the date.
You literally do not get a choice, which is, I learned that really fast. So,
yes.
They've got a plan. That's what they're doing.
So before we dive into the meat of the book again, are you still writing, doing another book? Published?
Not yet. I have been asked that a lot, and I have been, of course, like some ideas have been swirling around, but nothing has really struck me as like, this is what your next one is. This one took so long to write. I mean, I've really been writing this for really since 2012, because this book is a compilation of all 78 love matches, which took me years to write. So this is a compilation of almost 11 years of work. So if they were, if my publisher came to me and they're like, all right, what's next? I'd be like, all right, well, I haven't been working on anything that long. And so this really does feel so final, but then I'm like, okay, well, maybe maybe there would be something a little bit, yeah, like different or new or fresh that I could focus on. And it just hasn't hit me yet. So I don't
Mm,
know. I'm not sure yet, but it'll come to me. I know it will.
maybe Venus.
Maybe
You know,
My Venus sits in my first house. So the
yeah.
very, yeah, yeah,
Oh, we'll see. There's always something will come through. I think once you've got the bug, I think that's it. Wow.
yeah.
Yeah. And Desiree's a great writer anyway. You have to
Thank
go
you.
follow her on Instagram, particularly is where you post mostly, right?
I do. I'm really active on Instagram. You can find me at Simply Sun Signs. I do like a daily forecast. So I talk about, like today, Venus moved into Sagittarius. So that's my focus for the day. And, but I do trines and squares, and I've even added some people to those. So I'm like, all right, let's just do one almost every day. That's way it's kind of like fun. You go check my page and say, like, see what's kind of going on in the sky, and then kind of see if it resonates with your day. It's kind of just a fun thing to do. So
Oh, I do. I've been doing daily forecasts for years now. I'm kind of addicted to them. I keep thinking maybe I should give myself a break and go to weekly, but I like doing them because then I'm really in tune with the energies too.
yeah, definitely. I mean, I haven't always done them. I started doing them just a few years ago. So I have had some epiphanies about my own chart and how my own chart reacts with certain transits. And the longer you do them, the more and more you really understand even your own natal chart and just the energy in general of what that feels like and how you can prepare for that. Um now I'm addicted too. So because it's fun.
It is fun. And that's why I encourage people to carry on reading of a daily thing and see how it kind of, because astrology is all cycles and nothing happens on its own. So, we're kind of looking at the process of these evolutionary cycles going on and on and on. And
Yeah.
when we write every day, it's not just a simple, well, the moon's in Leo, so it's all going to be shiny, bright, and happy. There's a bit more to it than that.
Yeah.
Although
But
I do like Leo moons personally.
there's nothing quite like a Leo moon or fire moon in general. I'm surrounded by fire moons. So my moon is in Scorpio. So I have a water moon, and my mother, my mother-in-law, my husband, my son, like literally everyone around me has a fire moon. And I guess I wouldn't have it any other way.
Good for you. Okay, so into the meat of the book. I mean, we looked a little bit at this in the last interview. So if anybody wants to go back and listen to our first interview, we talked about it. But what I love, and I put this on the front, this was the quote from my testimonial. I said, the secret sauce that sets this book apart is the encouragement to look at the moon and other planetary signs in love, as well as just the sun. And that's, your great kind of inspiration, I think, was Linda Goodman, who did the sun signs, right? And your focus is on sun signs because the sun sign is the core and the meat of our who we are. But you can also, oh, there you go, Linda Goodman's love signs.
Love, it's got a lot of love. It's been used a
It
lot.
has, hasn't it? Yeah. Just hope you're holding up your book in a few years like that.
Yeah.
But we're more than just our sun sign. So I love that you say, if you know it, kind of look at your moon and other things, Venus as well. For example, I have Venus in Scorpio. So we're going to look at Scorpio a little bit in depth because Desiree's a Scorpio and I have Venus and Neptune in Scorpio. And so I'm going to try and avoid, of course, when I did a testimonial and got the book to read, I was like, I went straight to my bits, and and the bit that made me laugh out loud was my moon in Gemini with my husband's moon in Aries. And I was like, she just had nailed that. So but we're not going to keep it all about me today. So let's talk about Scorpio a bit today, because we're in Scorpio season still. And we both have quite a bit of Scorpio. So Desiree's going to do us a little reading from her bit, and we're going to talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, being in love with a Scorpio, or even someone who has a Scorpio, or a Venus in Scorpio, or any major planetary placements in Scorpio, is always felt, right? It's always felt in a very concentrated way. In fact, I went to Norwalk earlier this year in May, and I can't remember who said it, but they said to be loved, there's nothing better to be loved by a Scorpio, and there's nothing worse than to be hated by one. So they're very black and white. I don't know if there's a lot of gray area with loving a Scorpio. Uh, it's kind of
Very, very intense.
it's intense. It's very intense, but if you're into that, then it's perfect for you, right? They're their own flavor. They're like an acquired taste. Think of like a really strong cup of coffee. The first time you ever have espresso, you're like, oof. And then after a while, you kind of get addicted to it. And you're like, I kind of like this now. And that's what loving a Scorpio is like. It's a little addicting as long as you're able to get used to the intensity. So
It's a
um,
very magnetic sign too, isn't it? It's like they keep drawing you in.
yeah, so I think it takes you forever to really get to know one because they have so many layers, and so they're a very complex. They're very complex characters, which makes them interesting and enigmatic and um, fascinating. So I think that they're a mystery to be solved, and a lot of people like that about them and want to try to unsolve or unravel their mystery. So but yeah, so in my book, I open each chapter, so you kind of like the little picture, but it has like the constellation, and then I start out by talking about the archetype and their lesson in love. And so I say Scorpio's love archetype is the alchemic lover. They transform and create love through a seemingly magical process. Scorpio is complex, secretive, introspective, and tactical. Scorpio's lesson in love is to impart that love is desire and absorb that love is relinquishing.
Mm. And then the table below gives what body parts Scorpio rules, things like that, what animals are represented by Scorpio. So we've got all the basics like that. So go on. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you didn't. I did this little table because I thought that it would be fun, like if your partner is a Scorpio and you want to get them a gift, you could look at the crystals or the flowers that belong to them, or even just like what kind of food. So like, I put different types of food that they would like. And so like a great spot for a Scorpio would be like a little like hole in the wall that nobody knows about, but it's like the best food in town. Like that's very Scorpio. So and then I go into their ruling planets, which obviously is a huge piece of the pie when you're talking about understanding the energy of each sign. So I go into obviously their traditional and modern ruler. I do both. And then I go into the mythology, which I love. Astrology mythology, love it. And I find it fascinating and I find connections all the time. So I had to add that in there. And then I do some positive and negative qualities. And then I talk about how I go into little chapters. They're just about a page and maybe a page and a half, about how Scorpio loves, how to spot one, how to lose one, and then how to bed one. So, and then it goes into all of the matches. So it starts out with Scorpio and goes to Pisces. So, and then of course the book is laid out like that for every one of the signs.
Yeah.
But I think it just gives you like I think it's great for people who are brand new to astrology, as well as even people who are not brand new and they're just looking for some interpretation when it comes to the energy of what two signs are like together.
Yeah, I do. I agree. And I described it as rich, appealing, and descriptive. Desiree's writing is like really clear, and I love how you kind of describe all the signs, which is why I laughed out loud when
Wait, I'm so curious what part did you, I'm at the Aries and Gemini right now. They're in a,
okay,
they're,
I'm a Gemini moon with an Aries moon.
your husband is your husband is an Aries moon?
Yeah.
My
Uh-huh.
husband has an Aries moon as well. Do you have like a
Yeah.
love-hate relationship with it? Because I do.
Yes.
So like one thing I love about it is he is so sure. And when he makes a decision, he is
Oh,
like
I know.
so sure about it. In fact, we got engaged only after like 3 months. And I have Mars in Libra. So when he proposed to me, I looked at him and I said, "Are you sure?" Because it had only been 3 months. I'm like, "What's wrong with you?"
Well,
Uh,
yeah, he knew right away, yeah. And Gemini moon me was going, really?
yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. But yeah, so I say here about Aries and Gemini, they're an unstoppable team and they're always looking for an adventure to conquer together. There's not a lot that will hold their interest for long, which is why these two are always on the move. Aries fizzles with a childlike impulsivity, and Gemini is determined to achieve complete individuality by breaking every promise of the soul. Like they're just, it's like almost two children hanging out all the time and just nonstop fun.
It is.
Yeah, I
And
love that.
we're always doing road trips, and we've lived in 3 different continents together, and we're always exploring things. And we have a Scorpio and a Cancer children. So poor those poor watery children.
You probably just look at the two of you and go,
When are they going to grow up? Kind of.
yeah, but you never, never. And that's what's so beautiful about it. In fact,
Yeah.
I end that chapter and I say, these two are both so wonderfully useful together. And if Aries can just remember to let go of control, and if Gemini can stick around and skip the next gust of wind that comes by, love can do just about anything for them. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
And it's true. But the bit that made me laugh, I think, the most was Gemini will always drive Aries a little crazy in the worst and best ways.
Ah,
I drive my husband nuts. Aries always feels like Gemini is searching for something that does not exist because they're always looking back and recollecting. Anyway, it went on like that, but it was just, yeah. Anyway, I'm not
well,
going
I'm
to
not gonna laugh
else.
at it. You're
But
making me.
yeah, yeah. But talking of Scorpio, which signs are most compatible with Scorpio?
I mean, so I'm a firm believer that any astrological relationship can work truly. And in fact, I the more modern we get, I've seen so many conjunct and square couples and opposing couples. And I think that's because the more modern couple nowadays is not really looking um, for necessarily what's easy, but what a partner that will help them grow and be a better version of themselves. And
Mm,
squares create growth,
yeah,
opposition,
I agree. Yeah.
right? And because there's that little bit of friction that gets things kind of moving and grooving. And it's just like it kind of shows you parts of yourself that maybe you need to work on, or maybe you didn't even notice until you got with this person. But there's a lot of growth from that. So I love all of them. As a Scorpio personally, I absolutely love Scorpio and Virgo together.
Mm,
I find like they have a really interesting dynamic between them, primarily because what's fascinating about this pair is that Virgo has a very fluid modality because they're mutable,
mhm,
and Scorpio has a fixed modality, which is stable or stagnant. But then when you talk about their elements, it flip flops. So Virgo has Earth, which is a very stable element, And then Scorpio has this water, which is fluid. And so it's almost like and that's the only pair that it's like that in that sense. So it's really, it works really well. And there's also this like attraction of light and dark and the mixing of light and dark that just, it's really neat. My son is a Virgo. I find him incredibly healing to be around. And I think Scorpios are very protective. So I think, they offer Virgo a lot of protection and loyalty. And I don't know, I just really love that combination of energy. What about you? What's your favorite Scorpio match? What do you
Oh gosh. I actually, well, I look at my parents, and my dad was a Scorpio and my mom's a Taurus, and the
Oh,
opposites just really attracted in that case. They had a very happy marriage. He died unfortunately quite young, but until he died, they were just, and she's never remarried. They were definitely had that kind of real connection and bond. And I love that you talk about the elements as well, though. I think earth and water goes very well together, or it can be a little bit muddy at times, but
if there's too much water, yeah, it's a little muddy.
yes. But I agree that there's no terrible and you're also just not only your sun sign, so, and it's also dependent on where in the chart everything is. So, and I do love that about your book, that some of the old, I can't say I read many sun sign books that did this, but articles particularly, and blog posts and things, they kind of just focus on the negative, and summing up this one sign. I would never go out with a Pisces or something like that. I'm like, really? Why?
Yeah,
It's just
you know,
so reductive of people. It's,
it,
yeah.
it yeah, I walked into a bookstore not long ago, and I was flipping through an astrology book, and it had all of the 78 relationships ranked by a star base.
Oh,
And it's just like, yeah, this is not shouldn't be out in the universe, but it is.
yeah.
And I just hope that people understand that judging your relationship just based on your sun is like judging a book by its cover.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yes, of course, like I am a wholehearted believer that you are, core of you is your sun, but um like,
Yeah.
and here's my thing. So like square signs are a great example. Everyone is always going after the square couples, which
Mhm.
what's funny about that is they have the same modality. So
Yeah.
they communicate the same way. Isn't
Uh-huh.
isn't communication one of the most important things in your relationship? Yeah. So they have that in common. And in fact, like my brother and his wife are a Virgo Gemini pair, and they connect through talking. Like you should see that, it's like they're like they back and forth, and I'm like watching them like this, like and it's like they're so intelligent, and they're both just, that's how they love each other, is through
Yeah.
communication. So it's silly. And another one that doesn't get enough credit is quincunx. So
I was just about to say that. Yeah.
they're
Mhm.
really the ones that have like nothing in common, right? Because they don't have an element in common. Their modality is not the same, and one is yin and one is yang. So they really don't have anything astrologically in common. But what's fascinating about them is their sign, or their suns fall in the eighth and fifth house. Well, hello, that's
Mhm.
sex and passion and
Sex,
children.
passion, affairs, and the heart and bonding. Yeah. Mm.
And I think because they are so different, they're fascinated by each other. Like Gemini, Scorpio, since we're talking about Scorpio, Gemini loves solving puzzles, and Scorpio is a 1,000-piece jigsaw for them. And they're like, "Yep, I'm interested now," And um, Aries and Scorpio is the other quincunx pair for Scorpio, and they're both Mars ruled. Talk about physical attraction and passion, and I mean, they don't get enough credit.
Oh, so, overall, I would perhaps, in my opinion, say that some signs have to kind of make few more adjustments to kind of fit in with each other, whereas some signs instantly kind of go like that. But then those adjustments make the relationship more interesting as well. So
Agreed. Agreed.
yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, life's, can you imagine if you meet somebody and you just like feel exactly the same? Interestingly, and I'm not giving any information away here, but I did have a client recently who was looking, he's started a new relationship and he wanted me to look at both their charts. Well, they were born 3 days apart. And he kept saying, well, will we get along? And I was like, well, you're kind of the same, really.
I have to tell you this story because you brought that up. So I've known my husband my whole life, almost since I was a kid, and we've been married. We've been married for 5.5 years, but we were engaged for a couple years. So we're talking like 7 years that we've been like living together. And so I have, of course, one of the first things I want to know is his birth time, right? So I know everything else but his rising sign. And I asked his mom and she couldn't really remember. She said, I think it's around this. I'm like, that's not good enough. So I kind of let it off and let it off. And I always thought he was Capricorn rising because we're both Scorpios. So eclipse season came around and I'm like, you know what? I'm done guessing. I'm gonna get his birth time. And so long story short, I filled out the form, I paid the fee, I waited 2 weeks and I got it. And we are both Sagittarius risings, Scorpio sun, Mercury in Scorpio. And I'm like, yeah, okay. I'm literally married to myself. So
that's hilarious. This couple was pretty much the same. The
yeah,
only thing,
our composite chart looks like my birth chart.
yeah, the only thing they had different was their moons. And their moons were in a sextile to each other, which I thought was nice.
That's really nice. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, it's going to be really pretty harmonious, pretty,
Yeah.
you know each other well. So, yeah.
The thing with the conjunct pairs always is just they act as like a mirror. So when things are really, really good, they're extra good. And then when things are really, really bad, it's like, okay, you're kind of fighting your own demons, you know? So it's, and I can say this because I understand this energy very well.
Uh-huh.
It's condensed. I love conjunctions though. My chart is very conjunct.
Yeah.
So
Well, my husband was born on December the 7th and me December the 14th. So,
yeah.
so our sons are just 7 degrees apart. So yeah, I get it.
So within orb conjunction, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I within
definitely.
orb 8 degrees, so that counts.
Yeah, definitely. And it shows because what you said is exactly true. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So we're heading into Sagittarius season, but happy birthday first to Desiree. It's her birthday coming up. So happy birthday to her. She signs her emails, sincerely your Scorpio, and I just love that. So
I came up with that a long time ago. All my work emails or my muggle job, I always sign them sincerely. So when I started my blog, I was like, sincerely your Scorpio. That's it right there. So
it is. I know. She's very good at these little things. I'm Sagittarius and Gemini moon, so it's changing all the time. I don't stick with one thing.
but thank God for my Sagittarius because I would be a very serious person if I didn't have my rising at 0 degrees. I mean, at that fresh degree is always just the fun, the fun one, you know.
I love the 0 degree. It's fool's degree. Mine's 28 Sagittarius, so I'm on the galactic center.
I love that.
But my Mercury is conjunct Desiree's rising sign, so if we're not careful, we would talk all day. But I hope you find it entertaining anyway, as we have a laugh together and things. So tell us, I mean, we can't go through every sign, and we want you to buy Desiree's book because it's one of those books, a lot of astrology books are written for other astrologers, really, because they go in depth. And then there's also some, what I would call I don't want to be mean, but I would call the kind of less accurate kind of beginners books that are very kind of, like you said, about the ranking the relationships in order. I'm sorry, that's just like, oh my heavens, no, please don't do that.
Laughing while reading it. I'm like, and just shaking my head, like, come on, let's not publish stuff like this.
But I can promise you, this is not one of those books. This is one of those books that could grow with you, because even if all you know is your sun sign at the moment, you'll get a lot out of that by looking at how you work with other sun signs in your lives. Then you can learn if you take it further and learn to calculate a chart online. You could do it for free. Astro-seek.com is my favorite site for a free chart, but there's also astro.com. And then you can find out where your moon is and look at how you relate moon wise and so on and so forth. But it can grow with you because you can keep going back to this. But you can, if all you ever know is the sun sign, you can just get a lot out of it with the sun signs. But I want to talk a little bit about Sagittarius because I'm a Sagittarius.
Sagittarius stellium, so that's like my second sign. I feel like very much both of them. So
yeah, me too. I've got a Scorpio small stellium too, so we're kind of little bit reversed in that way. But tell us about Sagittarius in love.
Yeah, so Sagittarius, and I'm just reading here from the beginning of the Sagittarius section. So Sagittarius love archetype is the explorative lover. They are inspirational, assertive, energetic, and zealous partner who explores exotic realms both physically and philosophically. Sagittarius' lesson in love is to impart that love is sincerity and absorb that love is devotion. And I think sincere is the best word for them, and hence my sign off, because that's the one thing I think I love so much about my own personal Sagittarian energy is just the honesty, and the search for knowledge never ends, and the zealousness, the optimism. And so when you're in love with one, they are just, if you want to keep one, they're always looking for like an adventure, what's new, what's next. Bigger is better with Sag. There's the, I mean,
They definitely don't like to be bored. To be on to the next experience, I will say. But growing up as a Sagittarius, when I was young, before I knew the whole chart, I obviously read all about my sign growing up. And Sagittarius was always portrayed as like, they'll never settle down. You can't keep a Sagittarius. And actually, it's just not true. I find that, we are extremely loyal once we connect and commit to somebody, once we find somebody. Sagittarius is kind of one of the loyalist signs, in my opinion. So,
yeah, I mean, I think that out of all of the 12 sun signs, they're not afraid to show you how they feel about you. They almost like wear their heart on the sleeve a little. And I think that they are really good at bouncing back. So if they go through a bad breakup, or if they go through something a little tough with love, they don't harbor any resentment, and they go into their next relationship just as open as the first one. And you have to kind of admire that about them, that they're just able to really enter into love with this rose colored glasses. And that's what makes them so fun to love, is that they don't have a chip on their shoulder. Like, they know that every love experience is not going to be like the last, so they go into it with this really optimistic attitude. And I love that about Sagittarians, and how they love is just, there's nothing small about it. It's
not
fun.
at all. Big signs of affection, expansive gestures, big gestures, all that kind of stuff. And of course, we do have some negative qualities, even though we're the best sign. and Desiree does list them as recklessness, can have emotional confusion, carelessness, rude, fickle. I always call the rudeness, though, foot in mouth syndrome, because we're not malicious at all. We don't think we actually intend to kind of stick off with people's mouths. But we
Yeah,
do.
if I'm not careful, people can definitely. I have Uranus, Saturn, and Venus in my first house in Sagittarius, and people can take me wrong, and I'm never out to hurt anyone, but I have been taken a little wrong a few times in my life, and I'm like, whoops, sorry about that. You
Me
know,
too.
sorry.
Good at apologizing too.
Yeah, I apologize for my foot and mouth syndrome all the time. I mean, I just say it like it is, and I think I'm very animated too, like my face, and that's my Sagittarius first house stellium. I can't help it. It's my face. So, and my face sometimes is like, oh, like this, and people are like, don't that hurt my feelings, and I'm like, sorry.
Yeah, we can't really hide what's going on behind very well. Sagittarius rising particularly, so since we're both that,
Oh,
yeah.
how I feel. Sorry.
But I guess what I really kind of tried to get at is that in this book, whilst every sign has its less desirous aspects or negative aspects, as you want to call them, you don't focus on those, and you kind of focus on bringing out the best in people, which to my mind means that, say, for example, if you're a Pisces and you've fallen for an Aries, and they're kind of very different things, but you can understand how to work with each other through this book as well. So
Absolutely. Like a great example of that is my husband's Mars is in Virgo, which
hypercritical, let's say.
uh and like no relaxation. So like Saturday morning, I'm like, I've put a full week. Oh, I just want to relax, have a hot cup of coffee, just chill out.
He's out up there doing chores and jobs, and I can imagine, got his hammer and nails going and his drill.
What are we gonna get done today? What are we doing? What are we gonna get done? Where are we gonna go? What chores are we gonna accomplish? And I'm like, oh no, please leave me alone. But then you know what I do? I look up at the sky and I say, thank you, God, for his Venus and Mars, because at least somebody's getting something done today. And I just have to, like, it creates passion, even though it drives me crazy. And I turn it into gratefulness.
Exactly. And so that's what I love about the approach of this book. You can, even if you're one of the less compatible signs, you can just learning about it and understanding it can help you to be more forgiving and more grateful, as you said, for what that other person brings to the sign. Yeah. I don't know my husband's birth time. I've tried to, I've never managed, they don't put it down in the UK, so I've never tried. I'm always trying to rectify it, but he's got some strong Virgo in there too. I always say he's a human doing, not a human being.
I mean, my Mars is in Libra. I'm just trying to be beautiful and relaxed, I'm
Exactly.
so really, and that's my hope for this book. Actually, I think I can't remember if it's in the beginning or the end, but I think one of the takeaways that I say, and my hope for couples when they read this, is to, here, I just say, every relationship has its highs and lows, its blessings and its areas of opportunity. My hope is that this book gives you a new set of eyes to see your partner through, as well as room to grow and understand your companion on a new level, in hopes of prolonging and bettering your love, or in finding love.
And I'd say it's successful at that, because even though I've been practicing astrology for a lot of years now, my focus has not been relationships so much. I'm more the individual kind of psychological kind of astrologer, but clearly I've looked at some relationships. But it just helped me even with my own relationship, even though I've been married 25 years, because I'm like, oh, yeah, you can always learn more. That's what's the great thing about astrology. You can always learn how to work with each other and understand each other and yourself at a deeper level. And this book will definitely help you to do that. So
Yeah,
I'm
thank
hoping a lot of you will go out and get it, or some of you will become a member and go in the drawing to win a copy, which would get mailed out to you by me, not by Desiree. But anything else you want to tell people about it, Desiree, and about you? She's not taking one-on-one consultations currently, maybe next year. So just go follow her on Instagram if you're interested in that at some point. She's a
Yeah,
little busy at the moment, right?
I'm a little bit busy, yeah. And then, LinkedIn, it's the holiday season, so now it's time to, focus on family and which I love to do. I have a 4-year-old, so the holidays with a little kid it's really magical and so fun. So yeah, so I'm just gonna be focusing on that and focusing on the book through the holiday season. And I'm on Instagram, like I said, so please follow me there. Just one last thing about the book, it is focused to be on relationships, but I did have a woman message me on Instagram the other day, and she said, I love your book. I'm not in a relationship and I'm not interested in really being in one right now, but I love your book because I use it for my own chart. She has her Aries, her sun in Aries and her moon in Cancer. And she said, everything that I've ever read about that combination is always negative. And then when I read your book, I felt like you were, like I learned how to love myself. And I was like, wow, like that was absolutely not how I wrote the book, because I wrote it obviously thinking of the combination of two people's energies, but you do have different energies that live within yourself and that need to learn how to get along. Sometimes my Sagittarius and my Scorpio fight each other. Like, you guys need to get along.
Mine too. And sometimes my Gemini and Sagittarius fight each other because they're opposing each other. So yeah, I'm going to go and read it again, the sections to do with myself. And you brought up your 4-year-old too. It's not just partner relationships we're talking about here. It's talking about friends, you and your children. You can learn how to understand each other and how you work with each other. So, yes, it's sun signs in love, but we love more than just the person we end up in a long-term relationship with. We love a lot of people in our lifetimes, so it fits them all.
It does. Many soulmates. I'm a believer in having many soulmates in your life so.
Oh, I agree. I don't ever think we just have one. I'm not a big fan of when am I going to meet my soulmate? I'm gonna go, well, you've got lots of them.
Yeah, that's Sagittarian way of thinking. You've got a lot of them. Everybody. No, I'm just kidding.
No, some people are definitely not my soulmates, but that's okay.
Yeah, you can have, right. I do
Yeah.
believe you have an opportunity to meet them. I believe that you cross paths, but I have girlfriends that are soulmates. My son is most certainly my soulmate. My husband. So if you think about it in a they're non-sexual way, like soulmates are just two souls that knew each other and that connect in a really, really deep way. And
Mhm.
yeah, so
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
yeah.
And there's many ways to connect as well, but and this book, it just the language and just the you've actually got quite a good sense of humor through it as well. Your humor comes across on this, but it comes across in your writing as well, which I like. So yeah,
Well,
some
you
books are
have to have a little humor in your relationships, because relationships are hard and sometimes you just need to laugh about it. You have
and
to.
some books are so dry. This one isn't.
I try to be conversational. I try to make it feel like I'm sitting there talking with you like a friend. And that's actually how this book got written. Was a friend came to me and asked me about her relationship, and my Mars is in Scorpio, so, or I'm sorry, my Mercury is in Scorpio, so I like to sit and kind of think, and writing's a really good tool for me, um, to like collect my thoughts, and then writing it is just, it becomes more intentional, and just it sounds better. I think it filters my Sagittarius rising, if that makes sense. So I wrote it for her, and she read it and was like, this is amazing, you have to do this for all of them. And so when I write them, I think, like, I sit and I think like I'm talking to a friend every time. I wrote all of them. And so that's why I feel like they are more conversational, like it's almost like you have a friend giving you advice, just,
Yeah.
and that's kind of what I'm trying to do, because I've been studying archetypes since I was 12 years old. You know, I'll be 35 on Saturday. So it's been a little while.
Oh. Well, she does it really well. Are you going to Norwalk next year?
Only if you are.
I'm going to go. I've bought my ticket.
Well, all right. That's the sign. I'm going, everybody. I gotta go now.
And you know, I've been to a few astrology conferences now. I think you should actually create a talk based on your book and start to apply to speak, because this, you know, there's too much emphasis, I think, at conferences on the more complex things that astrologers, and that, yeah, that suits somebody who's been practicing for years.
Yeah.
There's also a lot of newer people at conferences who need something that's kind of more at the entry level, shall we say. So.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, if I have your blessing, I might just do that. And I'm gonna put in there, Louise Eddington told me to do this. I blame it on you. She gave me the courage to do it. I've been thinking about it, but I that's kind of my setback, is I'm like, well, is this going to be not advanced enough for, yeah, because a lot of the classes there are very advanced. I just went and I learned so much, but right, it was a lot of topics that I wasn't familiar on, and I've been studying for a long time. So
Mm.
yeah, maybe I should. Maybe I will.
I think you should. And I have some ideas. So when we stop recording, don't go away right away. But anyway.
I'll stick around.
Okay, so thank you for joining me again.
Thank
And just
you for having me
congratulations on, you know, I've having been paid to write 3 books and by a publisher and pushed on deadlines. I know writing a whole book is quite a feat, and to kind of do it on your own is a bigger feat.
again.
But congratulations on being picked up by Llewellyn, a great
Thank you.
publisher.
They are.
And you're just awesome, and keep going.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. And for all your kind words and support. And yeah, go get your copy, everybody. It's out there.